I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you.
The Prime Minister on death row, a government seemingly on life support. But where did it all start to go wrong for Sir Keir Starmer? Just days into his premiership back in July 2024, Sir Keir Starmer's disastrous handling of the Southport riots, in which he was widely criticised for besmirching everyone as far right. That set the tone for a tone-deaf Prime Minister. And next, the man who promised to end Tory sleaze, he became known as Free Gear Keir. When it emerged, his Covent Garden chairman, Labour donor Lord Ali, had paid for just about everything, from Sir Keir's spectacles to Lady Starmer's frock. And then came the budget.
Be freezing this Christmas without fuel at home.
Yes, next, British pensioners felt the chill of Starmer the granny harmer as he withdrew the winter fuel allowance after giving massive public sector pay rises. The pensioners, of course, well, they weren't the only ones. Next, British farmers were ploughed into, and Sir Keir Starmer earned his next nickname, this time Starmer the Farmer Harmer, as he and Rachel Reeves slapped them with an inheritance tax on family farms. And then came the mightiest of U-turns of all, perhaps on the grooming gang's National Inquiry scandal from this.
Calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Once again, the far right, and then came another screeching handbrake turn.
I've looked at her report. I've considered that material. I think she's right, and that's why there'll be a national inquiry.
And none of that is to mention the fact that we were promised this.
To go after the criminal gangs, to smash the gang networks.
To smash the smuggling gangs.
Smash the gangs.
To smash the gangs.
Right. Let's not mince words here. Britain is watching a political car crash in slow motion, and the driver's still got his hands on the wheel. Keir Starmer, the man who promised to restore integrity to British politics, is now presiding over what seasoned political observers are calling the biggest scandal in over a century. And we're not talking about some dodgy expenses claim or an awkward tweet. We're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Mandelson, and a web of connections so toxic it makes the expenses scandal look like a parking ticket. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about this government. I'm bringing you the unfiltered truth that the mainstream won't touch. And if you want more of this, no spin, no sugarcoating, just raw political analysis, smash that subscribe button and hit the notifications bell, because this channel is your antidote to the sanitized nonsense elsewhere.
But far from smashing the gangs, Sir Keir Starmer's government only seemed to smash records. And then we received the Prime Minister who has overseen more illegal channel crossings than any other. We've seen the government struggle to cut out welfare budget that now outsizes the GDP of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and an obsession with assisted dying, not just of the elderly, but for pubs, for restaurants, and indeed for any hotel not stuffed to the brim with asylum seekers. And whether it was 19 months of chaos, 15 U-turns begging the Americans to let him pay Mauritius to take our sovereign territory, or indeed kowtowing to China, it has all now, today, culminated in this.
This is the biggest scandal in British politics for over 1 century.
The biggest scandal in a century, from a government that promised to turn the pages on 14 years of Tory chaos. There's only one question tonight, it's this. Is it game over for Sir Keir Starmer?
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of Tally Money, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is Tally Money?
Well, Bev, with Tally Money, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at Tally Money. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Let's start with the elephant in Westminster, or should I say, the convicted sex offender in the contact list. Peter Mandelson, Labour grandee, political Houdini, and apparently pen pal to Jeffrey Epstein, not just before Epstein's conviction in 2008, mind you, after. During the financial crisis, while the British economy was collapsing and people were losing their homes, Mandelson was apparently still chatting away with a man who'd just been convicted of soliciting prostitution from a minor. Let that sink in for a moment. We're not talking about a casual acquaintance who sent a Christmas card once. We're talking documented, ongoing communication with one of the most notorious criminals of our generation. And here's the kicker Keir Starmer knew. He was informed on at least 2 separate occasions about Mandelson's cozy relationship with Epstein, and what did our Prime Minister do? He gave him a senior advisory role anyway. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. You couldn't write this if you tried. Now, GB News presenter Bev Turner didn't pull her punches when she said this goes beyond political embarrassment. This is about national security. Mandelson had access to cabinet-level intelligence, sensitive government briefings, the kind of information that keeps our country safe. And he's swapping notes with someone who had documented ties to intelligence services, foreign actors, and a social circle that reads like a who's who of global power players with questionable morals. Former Conservative Attorney General Sir Michael Ellis has rightly pointed out that this could constitute a breach of the Official Secrets Act. Some are even whispering the T-word treason. That's how serious this is. And yet, Starmer's response has been what exactly? Crickets. Radio silence. The man who promised transparency is hiding behind procedure and hoping the news cycle moves on. Hook. But wait, there's more. And if you think that's bad, hold on to your seats, because the Mandelson-Epstein scandal is just the tip of an absolutely massive iceberg. Starmer's tenure has been a masterclass in how to alienate every conceivable demographic in record time. It's almost impressive in its thoroughness.
I'm delighted to be joined in the studio now by the editor of the Sunday Telegraph and the excellent columnist Alistair Heath, as well as my panel tonight. That's the former Conservative Attorney General Sir Michael Ellis and the former Chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party, Lord John Cryer. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. It's a pleasure to have your company. I shall start with you, Alistair Heath. As I like to do on these occasions, we've set the picture there of a frankly disastrous political regime under Keir Starmer. Your column in the Telegraph today, the headline speaks for itself. You say these are the humiliating death throes of Starmer's sordid regime. You think the Prime Minister's days are numbered?
Yes, I do. I don't know how many days are left, but clearly not as many as before. I think the Mandelson-Epstein scandal is a catastrophe for Starmer. To be honest, it's a monstrous scandal. It's one of the worst political scandals in this country for many, many decades. The fact that Mandelson continued to consort with this horrible man even after he was convicted, the fact that this was actually known, there were newspaper articles about this, there were revelations about this, the horrible details, the fact that we now know that Mandelson literally sent emails he'd just received from the cabinet, copying the Prime Minister and everything, to Epstein at the height of the financial crisis, thus allowing Epstein to have this inside information. It's incredible, shocking stuff. And unfortunately, Starmer brought him back in, and it's been a complete disaster. And he owns that decision. It's his decision. He should not have brought him back, right? He shouldn't have not brought him back. Mandelson's turned out to be a disaster, and I think it will take down Starmer with him.
How long do you think he's got there as a an election coming in the next few weeks. There's also, of course, the huge raft of elections where they've been allowed to stand, of course, in Scotland, in Wales, and in the local elections. Is that when you think the pinch will come?
Well, it's hard to know. So you could have a situation where a cabinet minister suddenly says enough is enough, resigns, and sort of tries to trigger something like that. But that's not happened yet, so it may not happen. Documents may be released soon, which further expose Starmer and demonstrate his utter inability to act as a proper politician. If that happens, all better off. Alternatively, things calm down slightly. He then loses a by-election, maybe to the Greens, or maybe to Reform. That would be a disaster again. And of course, there's a May election. I mean, you know, the Labour Party is notoriously bad at removing leaders, but it can't be that bad, right? It can't have a total death wish. You're talking about a party that's already under 20% of the polls and that's facing electoral Armageddon, and that is, you know, whose leader is clearly incompetent at politics and has just, you know, been engulfed in this major scandal. They have to do something.
Let's bring my panel in now. And I'm duty-bound to start with you, Lord Cryer, the former chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party. Withering criticism there from Alistair Heath. It has to be said, it very much feels now as though the tanks are firmly parked on the Prime Minister's lawn. Is it the end of days? It feels like the final days of Boris Johnson's regime.
I'm not sure. It could. I mean, it could. Look, it could be. Just going back to the Mandelson scandal, I think we should start by remembering that the reason that we're discussing this now is because those victims came forward to accuse Epstein, and many times in this studio we've discussed the grooming gangs in North Midlands, the abuse and exploitation by men. And now we're talking about rich and powerful men, one in particular, abusing women. And Mandelson, well, for a start, Mandelson might be guilty of treason. I know we've got to be careful about what we say in legalistic terms, but he was passing secrets to another power, effectively another power. So he's probably guilty of that. On Keir, I've known Keir for a long time now. He's got some really serious questions to answer. Now, he was told twice, as far as we know, that Mandelson's relationship with Epstein continued. The first time was as far back as 2023 when Jim Pickard from the Financial Times said it, I think it was at a news conference.
It was.
He said he stayed in Epstein's house while Epstein was in jail for underage sex. Keir's got to try and explain, and I don't know how you do it, why he then decided to appoint Mandelson after all that and the previous scandals. I will say this in Keir's defence, and this is why, you know, I still have time for Keir. I saw him as chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party. I saw him close up for about 10 years as leader of the opposition, and before that as shadow Brexit secretary. As leader of the opposition, he did tackle the one thing that really needed tackling in the Labour Party, and it's something that still fills me with shame, and that is the scourge of anti-Semitism, which ripped through our ranks. It was present in councils, it was present up and down the country, and he showed some bottle in taking it on. Prior to that, this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but when you're a cabinet minister or a shadow minister, the one thing that you hate doing, and it's the same for the Conservatives, is speaking to your own MPs and your own peers. Because very often, some of them have got it in for you. Some of them have done the job so they know more than you. Some of them want your job. Every time I said to Keir, something had happened, you know, to do with Brexit over the weekend. I said to him, on a Monday night, you've got to come and speak to Labour MPs. He never bottled it. He never bottled it. He never ducked it. And he's one of the very, very few people who've done that.
Sir Michael Ellis, do you think Sir Keir Starmer is finished?
He is finished. I mean, politically, he is finished. The problem is he going to do the right thing? And I'm not convinced that he is. And because I don't think he does the right thing for the country. The litany of disasters over the past 18 months that you opened the show with, Martin, is an indication of the fact that their focus is on what they want to do, not on what the country wants them to do. And I don't think there's any reason to believe they're going to change their tune now. So it's in the national interest for there to be a change of Prime Minister, and it's in the national interest, actually, that there be a change of government. Are they going to facilitate that? I doubt it, because leopards don't change their spots. So what we're going to have is this continuation of this saga with this captain of a sinking ship, and it is a sinking ship. His government is a sinking ship. and there are people fostering around to try and take over from this sinking ship, but they'll go down with the sinking ship as well if they don't change these disastrous, unpopular policies, harming farmers, harming grannies, granny harmer, farmer harmer, all this sort of stuff is, as you've been saying, is what really needs changing.
Final word to you, if I could, Alistair Heath, about in the next part to talk about the potential replacement, potential future. Prime Minister Angela Rayner. How does that grab you?
Well, I think it's quite likely. The other option is Ed Miliband. People downplay that option often, but I think it's quite possible. I think, I think for the Conservatives and for Reform, and for the Greens and the Lib Dems, for all the opposition parties, getting rid of Keir Starmer would be a very good thing for them. Because, let's say Rayner becomes Prime Minister or Miliband, they would lack the legitimacy of somebody who just won a massive majority at a general election, which means the narrative would then change to, why are you Prime Minister? Why are you doing stuff that wasn't in the manifesto? No one voted for you. There needs to be another general election. And the chorus would rise and rise and rise because everybody would have an incentive to have an election except for the Labour Party. So I think that would help precipitate the sorts of changes that, the sorts of early general election scenarios that some people have talked about. But, I could see Rayner, I could see Miliband. From my perspective, it would be a disaster.
Al Khan's is a dark horse.
Pardon?
Al Khan's, the Labour MP.
Right. Well, people have mentioned him. I've met him. He's a very interesting guy. I cannot see how he could possibly win, but maybe I'm missing something here.
OK, gentlemen, a cracking start to the show. We have to leave it there. And quick statements to read out here. Lord Mandelson has previously denied wrongdoing related to Epstein, saying, I was never culpable or complicit in his crimes. Like everyone else, I learned the actual truth about him after his death. He also said he relied on assurances of his innocence. That turned out later to be horrendously false. Thank you to Alistair and to my panel. Coming up in just a moment's time, as I just mentioned,
So where does this end? Realistically, Starmer's options are narrowing by the day. He can cling to power, hope the scandals fade, and pray for better polling. But every day he stays makes the eventual reckoning worse for Labour. Or the party can recognize reality, activate whatever internal mechanisms exist for leadership challenges, and try to salvage something before the electoral catastrophe arrives. Either way, change is coming. The only question is whether it happens on Labour's terms or whether it's imposed by electoral humiliation of historic proportions. The British public are watching. They're angry. They're demanding answers. And they're increasingly convinced that the people running this country aren't fit for purpose. The Mandelson-Epstein scandal isn't going away. The policy failures keep mounting. The trust keeps evaporating. And somewhere in Downing Street, Keir Starmer must be wondering how it all went wrong so quickly. The man who promised integrity has delivered scandal. The man who promised competence has delivered chaos. The man who was supposed to restore faith in politics has accelerated its decline. Labour on life support? That's not hyperbole. That's diagnosis. Thanks for watching. This has been British News Unfiltered, where we don't do spin, we don't do excuses, and we definitely don't do boring. See you in the next one.